Admiral Josephine Barrett stared at the projection floating above her desk, watching another deep space mining facility dissolve into quantum foam. The shadowy entities responsible for the destruction moved like oil in water, beautiful in their terrible efficiency. This was the 7th facility lost in 3 months. "Play it again," she ordered, leaning forward. "Half speed." The scene repeated, dark shapes emerging from what appeared to be tears in space-time itself, surrounding the facility in a deadly embrace. But this time, Barrett noticed something odd. "Stop. Reverse 10 seconds. The entities weren't actually destroying the facility, they were consuming it, methodically breaking down its quantum shielding and energy systems into something else. "Admiral," her AI assistant chimed in, "the Galactic Council is demanding immediate action. They're calling for a joint military response." Barrett ignored the message, her mind racing. 20 years of military service had taught her to look past the obvious, to see patterns others missed. These entities weren't mindless destroyers, they were feeding. And what they left behind? "Show me the post-incident scans of the affected areas," she commanded. The hologram shifted, displaying readings that had puzzled xenophysicists across 3 sectors. Where the facilities had stood, space itself seemed more stable, more efficient at conducting energy. The quantum foam that normally bubbled at the microscopic level had been smoothed out, like a cosmic iron had pressed reality itself. "Get me Director Rajesh from Quantum Dynamics," Barrett said, a plan already forming. "And find out who owns the mining rights to those destroyed sectors." The next 12 hours were a blur of calls, arguments, and increasingly complex mathematical projections. When Barrett finally presented her proposal to the Galactic Council, the reaction was predictable. "You want to do what?" The Centaurian representative's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. "Domesticate them," Barrett repeated calmly. "These entities aren't destroying our facilities, they're refining them. Look at the data. Every site they've consumed shows massively improved quantum efficiency. They're natural quantum engineers, smoothing out the wrinkles in spacetime itself. They're a plague." The Rigelian ambassador's tentacles writhed in agitation. "They've caused billions in damage. They've caused billions in uncontrolled renovations," Barrett corrected. "What if we could direct that ability? Create controlled environments for them to feed and process? The quantum engineering applications alone could revolutionize everything from FTL travel to energy production." The council chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. Barrett waited patiently, knowing she had one card left to play. "The alternative," she said quietly, cutting through the chaos, "is to continue trying to destroy them. How's that working out so far? Every weapon we've deployed has only made them stronger. They don't just resist quantum-based attacks, they eat them." Silence fell as the truth of her words sank in. Humanity had faced this kind of challenge before, she reminded them. On Earth, they hadn't eliminated all dangerous predators, they'd learned to work with them, to harness their natural behaviors for mutual benefit. "I have a team ready," Barrett continued. "Quantum physicists, xenobiologists, and yes, some of our best animal trainers. Give us 6 months. If we can't show positive results, we'll support whatever military action the Council deems necessary." The Arcturian elder, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. "And if you succeed?" Barrett allowed herself a small smile. "Then we'll have turned the galaxy's biggest threat into its most valuable resource. And everyone in this room will own shares in the company that controls it." The vote that followed wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. As the council session ended, Barrett received a message from Director Rajesh: "Initial containment facility construction complete. When can you start?" Barrett looked once more at the hologram of the shadow entities, seeing not destruction but possibility. "Immediately," she replied. "Time to see if these quantum predators can learn new tricks." She didn't add that humanity's reputation in the galaxy was riding on this gamble. They'd been dismissed as primitive Deathworlders for too long. Now they had a chance to prove that sometimes the most advanced solution wasn't to destroy a threat, but to understand it, adapt to it, and ultimately, profit from it. The real work was about to begin, and Barrett couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. After all, this was what humans did best, turning nightmares into opportunities, one impossible challenge at a time. The Taming Protocol. The quantum containment facility hanging in deep space looked more like an avant-garde art installation than a scientific research center. Its crystalline chambers twisted in geometrically impossible ways, designed to appeal to the shadow entity's apparent appetite for quantum irregularities. Commander Isabella Torres watched through the observation deck as another entity approached the facility's outer membrane. After 3 months of trial and error, they were finally seeing consistent results. Feeding time, she announced over the comm all stations, initiate protocol quantum lure. The facility's quantum grid activated, creating controlled distortions in spacetime. The shadow entity, drawn by the energy signature, moved closer. Unlike their early encounters, there was almost something graceful about its approach now. Looking good, Dr. Himanshu Patel, their lead quantum physicist, monitored the readings from his station. Energy signature is stable. Containment field at optimal frequency. Torres allowed herself a small nod of satisfaction. Those first weeks had been brutal. They'd lost 2 prototype facilities before figuring out the right combination of quantum frequencies to attract but not antagonize the entities. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. "You're thinking too much like soldiers," Barrett had told them during a particularly frustrating video conference. "Stop trying to trap them. Think like farmers instead." The shift in perspective had changed everything. Instead of attempting to confine the entities, they started creating environments the creatures wanted to inhabit. The result was their current facility, a quantum ecosystem designed to cultivate rather than capture. "Entity is entering the primary chamber," Patel reported. "Quantum absorption rates are fascinating. Look at these efficiency ratings." Torres moved to his station, studying the data. The entity wasn't just consuming the quantum distortions, it was refining them, leaving behind patches of space that were more stable than anything their technology could achieve. "Director Kumar," Torres called to their xenobiologist, "are you seeing this pattern in the absorption sequence?" Kumar's hologram materialized beside them, her eyes bright with excitement. "Yes. It's remarkably similar to natural feeding behaviors we see in Earth's filter feeders. They're not mindless destroyers, they're cosmic filter feeders, processing quantum foam like whales process krill." A alert chimed through the facility. "Second entity approaching," the AI announced. "Signature matches subject beta." This was the real test. Previous attempts to house multiple entities had ended in disaster, but their new approach had shown promise. The trick, they discovered, was understanding the entity's natural social dynamics. "Maintain current protocols," Torres ordered. "Let's see if our theory about pod behavior holds up." The next few minutes were tense as the second entity approached. Instead of the violent reaction they'd witnessed in earlier trials, this one seemed to synchronize with the first, their movements becoming almost choreographed as they processed the quantum distortions together. "Would you look at that," Kumar whispered. "They're cooperating. Just like we predicted." Torres felt a smile tugging at her lips. "Send the data to Admiral Barrett. Tell her Phase 2 is ready for implementation." The message she got back was brief, "Excellent. The Galactic Council meets in 2 days. Time to show them what humanity can do." As Torres prepared the presentation that would change the galaxy's economic landscape, she reflected on how far they'd come. What had started as a desperate attempt to stop the destruction of space facilities had evolved into something far more significant. Their research hadn't just proved that the entities could be safely contained, it had revealed an entirely new branch of quantum engineering. The refined spacetime left behind by the entity's feeding process could revolutionize everything from FTL travel to quantum computing. "Commander," Patel called out, "you need to see this." The entities, they're reproducing. Torres rushed to the observation deck. Sure enough, the two entities had begun a strange dance, their forms intertwining in ways that defied conventional physics. Where they merged, tiny shadows budded off, each one a perfect miniature of their parents. "Well," Torres said, already mentally revising their presentation, "looks like we're going to need a bigger facility." The implications were staggering. They weren't just taming these creatures, they were establishing the foundation for an entirely new industry. Sustainable quantum refinement through biological processes. The possibilities were endless. As she watched the newborn entities begin their first feeding cycle, Torres thought about humanity's journey from feared Deathworlders to pioneers of xenobiological innovation. Sometimes the most dangerous path led to the greatest breakthroughs. "Update the containment protocols," she ordered. "And someone get me population growth projections. The Council's going to want to know exactly how many of these quantum refineries we can produce." The facility hummed around her, its crystalline chambers now home to the very entities that had once threatened to destroy everything they'd built. Soon, these chambers would become the template for facilities across the galaxy, living proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to destroy threats, but to transform them into opportunities. And this was just the beginning. Market disruption. The trading floor of the Galactic Exchange was in chaos. Holographic displays flashed red and green as stock prices fluctuated wildly, responding to the news that had just rocked the financial sector. Traditional quantum processing companies were watching their market value plummet as footage of humanity's quantum entity farms spread across the neural networks. Julian Blackwood, newly appointed CEO of Quantum Synthesis Corporation, QSC, stood before the Galactic Trade Commission, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the pandemonium around him. "What you're witnessing," he explained, gesturing to the holographic display of their primary facility, "is not just a scientific breakthrough. It's the beginning of a new industrial revolution." The Commission's chairperson, a proximan with crystalline features, leaned forward. "You claim these biological quantum processors are more efficient than our current technology?" "By several orders of magnitude," Blackwood confirmed. "The entities don't just process quantum information, they optimize it. Each processed sector shows a 300% increase in quantum stability. The applications are endless." He didn't mention the real reason for their success, the breakthrough that Commander Torres's team had achieved in understanding the entity's social behavior. The discovery that these creatures naturally formed hierarchical processing networks had transformed their operation from simple farming to sophisticated cultivation. "And the safety concerns?" another commissioner asked, their bioluminescent patterns showing skepticism. Blackwood had expected this question. He pulled up another hologram, this one showing their safety record over the past 6 months. 0 containment breaches. 0 unauthorized quantum events. The entities aren't just cooperating with us, they're thriving in the environments we've created. The data was impressive, but it wasn't what had the financial markets in turmoil. That honor belonged to the profit projections. "Our first quarter results speak for themselves," Blackwood continued. "The refined quantum space we're producing is 60% cheaper than traditionally processed sectors, with none of the stability degradation that plagued previous methods." He paused, letting that sink in. Across the galaxy, shipping companies were already scrambling to secure contracts for these new, ultra-stable FTL corridors. Manufacturing giants were desperate to access the enhanced quantum processing capabilities. And they were just scratching the surface of possible applications. "But there's more," he added, bringing up a new set of projections. "We've discovered that different entity pods specialize in processing different types of quantum phenomena. We're not just creating a new industry, we're establishing an entire ecosystem of quantum refinement services." The commission chamber erupted in discussions. Blackwood waited patiently, knowing what would come next. They'd follow the same pattern as every other regulatory body: initial skepticism, followed by grudging acceptance, and finally, eager participation. Meanwhile, in Quantum Synthesis Corporation's primary research facility, Dr. Kira Nazarov was making another breakthrough. She burst into Torres's office, her usual composure forgotten in her excitement. "Commander, we've done it. The entities, they're not just processing quantum space. They're teaching each other how to do it more efficiently." Torres looked up from her reports. "Explain." "We've been monitoring the communication patterns between pods," Nazarov said, pulling up her data. "They're sharing information, passing on successful processing techniques to newer generations. They're learning, evolving their methods. Each new generation is more efficient than the last." Torres immediately grasped the implications. "They're not just tools, they're partners in the process." "Exactly. And look at this," Nazarov brought up another dataset. "The refined space they're producing, it's starting to show properties we didn't even know were possible. They're not just stabilizing quantum foam, they're restructuring it in ways our theories didn't predict." Back at the Galactic Exchange, Blackwood was wrapping up his presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, humanity didn't just solve a crisis. We've opened the door to a new era of quantum engineering. The only question is, who wants to be part of it?" The answer came in the form of investment offers flooding in from across the galaxy. Species that had once looked down on humanity as primitive Deathworlders were now desperate to partner with them. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. As trading closed that day, QSC's stock had tripled in value. But in their research facilities, the real value was still being discovered. Each day brought new insights into the entity's capabilities, new applications for their unique abilities. "You know what the funny thing is?" Torres said to Nazarov as they watched a new pod of entities begin their training cycle. "Everyone thought we were crazy for trying to work with these creatures instead of fighting them. Now they're calling us visionaries." Nazarov smiled. "That's because they didn't understand what we understood from the beginning." "And what's that?" "That sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to stop seeing it as a problem in the first place." Outside their window, the quantum entities danced through their crystalline chambers, transforming what was once considered a cosmic nightmare into the foundation of a new age. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had been counting on. Diplomatic tremors. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen anything quite like this. Representatives from 37 spacefaring civilizations watched in stunned silence as Admiral Barrett concluded her presentation on the 5-year progress report of the Quantum Entity Integration Project. "As you can see," Barrett said, gesturing to the holographic display showing a network of quantum refinement facilities spanning 3 sectors, what began as a crisis response has evolved into the cornerstone of a new galactic economy. The Arcturian delegate, their crystalline form shimmering with barely contained energy, spoke first. "You've done more than create an industry, Admiral. You've forced us to question everything we thought we knew about threat response protocols." Barrett allowed herself a small smile. The past 5 years had transformed humanity's standing in the galactic community. From primitive Deathworlders to innovative problem solvers, the shift in perception had been dramatic. "The Synthetics Collective requests permission to speak," announced the Chamber's AI. All eyes turned to the holographic representation of the galaxy's most advanced artificial intelligence consortium. Their interest in the project had been unexpected but, in retrospect, logical. "The quantum refinement processes developed through this initiative have revolutionized our computational capabilities," the collective's avatar stated. "We project a 500% increase in AI evolution rates using the enhanced quantum spaces. Humanity's approach to this crisis has inadvertently solved challenges we've grappled with for millennia." Before Barrett could respond, alarms blared through the chamber. Emergency holoscreens materialized, showing breaking news from the outer rim. New entities had appeared, different from the quantum processors they'd domesticated. These ones seemed to feed on gravitational fields themselves. The chamber erupted in panic, but Barrett noticed something odd. Commander Torres, attending via hologram from the primary research facility, was smiling. "Admiral," Torres said, her voice cutting through the chaos, "you might want to show them Project Oracle." Barrett nodded. This was exactly the moment they'd been waiting for. "Council members, if I may direct your attention to the following data." The holographic display shifted, showing detailed analyses of various cosmic phenomena that had once been considered threats. Gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions, even the mysterious dark energy fluctuations that had plagued deep space exploration, all of them displayed patterns remarkably similar to their quantum-eating friends. "We didn't just develop a method for handling one type of cosmic entity," Barrett explained. "We created a framework for understanding and integrating what we once thought were universal threats. These new gravity-feeding entities. We already have preliminary containment and cultivation protocols ready." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Then, slowly, understanding began to dawn on the assembled delegates' faces. "You knew," the Proximan representative breathed. "You knew there would be more." "We hypothesized," Barrett corrected. "Earth's history taught us something crucial about evolution: nature doesn't create one-off solutions. If there were quantum-eating entities, why not gravity processors? Dark energy filterers? The universe is full of fundamental forces waiting to be refined." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just solved one crisis, they'd created a template for transforming cosmic threats into technological opportunities. Meanwhile, in the research facility, Dr. Nazarov was already leading a team in analyzing the new gravity-feeding entities. The preliminary data was promising. "They're even more sophisticated than our quantum friends," she reported to Torres. "These creatures don't just process gravitational fields, they weave them. Imagine what this could mean for artificial gravity generation, for planetary engineering." Torres watched the data stream in, remembering how different things had been just 5 years ago. "Send the initial findings to the corporate development team," she ordered. "And get me a line to marketing. They're going to need to come up with a catchier name than gravity-eating space monsters." Back in the council chamber, the discussion had turned to the future. Species that had once competed were now discussing cooperation, pooling resources to explore this new paradigm humanity had unveiled. "There will be more challenges," Barrett warned them. "More entities we don't understand, more forces we need to learn to work with rather than against. But that's the point, isn't it? The universe isn't our enemy. It's our greatest untapped resource." As she spoke, reports were already coming in from across the galaxy. New entities discovered, new phenomena observed, new opportunities waiting to be transformed from threats into assets. The age of cosmic integration had begun, and humanity, the former Deathworlders, were leading the way. Not through superior technology or military might, but through their unique ability to see opportunity in chaos, partnership in conflict, and possibility in the unknown. The real question, Barrett concluded, isn't whether we'll face new challenges. It's who wants to join us in turning those challenges into the next great leap forward. The answer, it seemed, was everyone. Evolution of Enterprise. 10 years after the first quantum entity was successfully integrated into human technology, the Galactic Archives commissioned a special exhibit. Its title, The Deathworlder Revolution: How Human Innovation Reshaped Cosmic Industry. Admiral Barrett, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, stood before a holographic display showing the transformed landscape of space. Quantum processing facilities, gravity weaving stations, and dark energy refineries dotted the cosmic map like stars, each representing a former threat turned into an industrial asset. Looking back, she addressed the gathered dignitaries, "Our greatest achievement wasn't the technology itself. It was changing how the galaxy thinks about challenges." The exhibit hall itself was a testament to that change. Its quantum-stabilized space was maintained by third-generation entities, their processes now so refined they could create pocket universes of perfect stability. Gravity weavers provided precise environmental control, while dark energy filters maintained optimal dimensional balance. Director Rajesh, his hair now gray but his eyes still bright with curiosity, joined Barrett at the podium. "Remember when they called us crazy for trying to domesticate spacetime anomalies?" he chuckled. "Now they call us for consultation every time something new appears in deep space," Barrett replied, watching a newly discovered type of entity being carefully studied in the research wing. These ones appeared to process temporal anomalies, smoothing out wrinkles in time itself. Commander Torres's voice came through their neural links, transmitted from the front lines of yet another breakthrough. "You're going to want to see this," she said, her excitement palpable even across light years. "The temporal processors. They're not just smoothing time, they're archiving it. Every space they process retains a perfect record of its past states." The implications were staggering. Living memory banks, capable of preserving not just data but time itself. Already, the research team was exploring applications in historical preservation, temporal engineering, and dimensional archaeology. But the real revolution wasn't in any single breakthrough. It was in the methodology that humanity had brought to the galaxy. The Deathworlder approach, as it had come to be known, was now being taught in every major institution across known space. "See the impossible as inevitable," read one of the exhibit's displays, quoting Dr. Nazarov's now famous speech to the Scientific Assembly. "Every obstacle is an opportunity in disguise." The Synthetics Collective had perhaps embraced this philosophy most enthusiastically. Their integration of quantum and temporal processing had led to unprecedented advances in artificial consciousness. AIs were no longer just thinking machines, they were partners in cosmic exploration, their evolution accelerated by the very forces that once threatened to destroy them. "Incoming priority message," announced Barrett's AI assistant. "The Rim explorers have discovered something new. Energy signatures unlike anything we've documented." Barrett shared a knowing look with Rajesh. "Let me guess, everyone's calling it a catastrophic threat. Initial reports suggest it could destabilize entire sectors," the AI confirmed. "Perfect," Barrett smiled. "Tell research and development to prep a team. Looks like we've found our next opportunity." As she moved to coordinate the response, Barrett passed a group of young xenobiologists from a dozen different species, all eagerly discussing theories about the new discovery. A decade ago, such cooperation would have been unthinkable. Now it was the norm. The exhibit's final display showed a time-lapse of the galaxy over the past 10 years. Watch points of crisis transform into centers of innovation. Traditional power structures had been upended, replaced by a new order based on adaptability and creative problem-solving. "You know what the best part is?" Rajesh mused, watching the next generation of scientists and entrepreneurs eagerly planning their approach to the new phenomenon. "We've barely scratched the surface. Every new discovery opens up possibilities we couldn't have imagined." Barrett nodded, remembering that first meeting with the Galactic Council, when humanity's approach had seemed so radical. "We didn't just change how the galaxy handles threats," she said. "We changed how it sees itself." In the research wing, another breakthrough was unfolding. In the corporate sector, new ventures were launching. On the frontier, new phenomena were being discovered. And everywhere, the old barriers between species, between organic and synthetic life, between threat and opportunity, were continuing to blur. The Deathworlders hadn't just survived in the galaxy, they had transformed it, not through conquest or dominance, but through their unique ability to see possibility where others saw peril. As Barrett prepared to coordinate humanity's response to this latest discovery, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. They had been called Deathworlders